Good afternoon, everyone. I am pleased to call the Subcommittee on Clean Air, Climate, and Nuclear Safety to order for a hearing on nominations to the Tennessee Valley Authority Board of Directors. Thank you to my ranking member, Senator Inhofe, and to the chairman and ranking member of the Committee on Environment and Public Works, Senator Carper, and Senator Capito, for their invaluable partnership in holding this hearing and for joining us today. I also want to thank Senators Wicker and Senator Shelby and Senator McConnell for joining us to help introduce the nominees. It is my pleasure to welcome my colleagues on the subcommittee as well as our three nominees for leadership roles at the Tennessee Valley Authority. We welcome them to our subcommittee today. The core mission of the TVA is just as relevant today as it was when the authority was created nearly 90 years ago. In 1933, Congress created the Tennessee Valley Authority to unleash the potential of the rich resources in the Tennessee Valley region and improve the lives of the people who live there. The TVA provides flood control, navigation, and land management for the Tennessee River system. It assists local power companies and regional governments with their economic development efforts, and it provides electricity to 10 million customers, making it the largest public utility in the United States. And as the nation's largest public power provider, the TVA serves as an example for public utilities across the country. The TVA can and should foster the kind of innovation that can clean up the region's energy resources, grow union jobs, reduce consumers' energy burdens, improve energy reliability and affordability, and protect the environment all at the same time. Just last month, the TVA released its third quarter fiscal year 2022 financial results, which detailed the important role that zero carbon energy played in stabilizing TVA consumers' energy costs. Despite volatile fossil fuel prices caused by our dependence on oil and gas that is priced on a global market. According to the report, natural gas prices soared 141% in June compared to last year, following Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. And coal prices also increased significantly. However, thanks to the affordable and more stable zero-carbon energy sources in the TVA's power system, TVA's prices rose only by 11% this year. A diverse, clean power mix brings a clear diversity of benefits to customers. But despite the role that renewables can play in lowering consumers' energy prices, only 3% of TVA's energy portfolio is comprised of wind and solar. TVA has to change. In Massachusetts, not the sunniest commonwealth out there, by comparison, 21% of our in-state Massachusetts electricity generation comes from wind and solar. And Massachusetts is not the perfectly sunny state. A lot of these TVA states are sunny most of the year, but yet they're only at 3% for wind and solar. How can Massachusetts be 5 times better? Does that really make any sense at all? The authority has the opportunity to advance the development and adoption of both utility scale and distributed clean energy in the region, creating jobs, lowering customers' energy bills as renewable energy continues to outcompete fossil fuels. By increasing the percentage of renewables in its power system, the TVA can reduce pollution and the energy burdens of the TVA customers who already pay some of the highest electricity bills in the nation as a percentage of household income. The TVA Board of Directors will make important decisions about TVA's energy planning for years to come, and it is critical that the board is comprised of leaders who will ensure that the TVA provides all Tennessee Valley households with access to reliable, clean, and affordable electricity while continuing to employ local workers in good-paying jobs and supporting economic development in the region. I look forward to our conversation with the nominees today on these important questions. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Renick, Mr. White, Mr. Ritch on their nominations, and I look forward to hearing from all of you today. Let me now turn and recognize Senator Imhoff, the ranking member, for his opening statement before we will recognize Senator Wicker for his introductory comments. Senator Imhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While my home state of Oklahoma is not part of the TVA region, having been a former chairman of this committee, I have come to know and appreciate the vital role that the TVA plays for the states of Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, and Virginia. The Tennessee Valley Authority keeps the lights on for nearly 10 million Americans, and it does so with an all-of-the-above energy approach to power generation, which includes energy, nuclear energy, and fossil fuels. Today, nuclear energy and fossil fuels make up nearly 70% of the Tennessee Valley Authority's electricity generation portfolio. The calls to eliminate fossil fuels in general from fossil fuel energy sources from the power sector are foolish and would be devastating for the American people by further increasing already sky-high utility bills and creating greater unreliability for the electric grid. The Tennessee Valley Authority should continue to prioritize reliable and abundant power sources that continue to keep the lights on for the American people. It's my hope that these nominees recognize the need for an all-of-the-above energy approach that includes nuclear and fossil fuels for the power sector now and into the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I thank the ranking member, and now let me turn to Senator Shelby for his introductory comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for holding this hearing, and I appreciate the opportunity to appear here today to introduce Joe Ritch from Huntsville, Alabama, longtime friend of mine. Joe Ritch was recently nominated by the President to serve on the Tennessee Valley TVA Authority's Board of Directors. He's been there before. He's also served as chairman of the TVA before with distinction. Joe Ritch is a practicing attorney, a tax lawyer, business lawyer, very good, strong Democrat, where he focuses on government contracts and corporate and tax law. He also served as the chair of the Redstone Regional Alliance, previously known as the Tennessee Valley Base Realignment Commission. In that capacity, Joe Ritch skillfully maintained and relocated several thousand jobs to the Huntsville-Madison County area in Alabama. And in light of this success, he received the Redstone Good Neighbor Award, as well as the Huntsville-Madison County Chamber of Commerce Distinguished Service Award. He's no stranger to this process. As I mentioned, he's been called upon before. He was previously confirmed by the Senate, this committee, to serve on the TVA board from 2013 to 2017, including 4 years as chairman of the board of directors of TVA. Joe was the first Alabamian ever to serve as chairman of the TVA board, a strong indicator of his ability to lead. Joe Ritch has built a solid reputation, not only in his community, but around the state, as a hardworking, service-oriented, and highly intelligent individual. He's been an active member of several community organizations at home and a leader in our state's business sector. He loyally served as a member of the Board of Trustees at the University of Alabama and now serves as a trustee emeritus. And he was inducted in the Alabama Business Hall of Fame in 2021. He holds degrees from the University of Alabama in Huntsville, from Cumberland Law School, and from New York University Law School. As a former board member and chairman of TVA, I believe he would be a great asset for TVA and its customers. He understands the weight of this role. He understands the interaction of the legislative body and the TVA. And I'm proud and pleased to be here to recommend him to the committee without reservation. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding the hearing again.
We thank you, Senator Shelby, and now we'll turn to Senator Wicker for his introduction.
And thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I am delighted to be here today to say a word or two about the importance that TVA continues to have for our region and for my state of Mississippi, and to congratulate all three nominees. I'm sure Mr. White and Mr. Ritch are absolutely outstanding, but to give as ringing of an endorsement as I possibly can for Bill Renick of Ashland, Mississippi. A word or two about the history of TVA. In 1930, Mississippi had electric power in 85% of its larger municipalities, but only 1.5% of rural farms and homes. And coming along in 1933, TVA was a game changer. The goal was simple: to improve living and economic conditions in 7 southeastern states, and TVA has done that and continues to do that in new and different ways. I grew up in the small town of Pontotoc, Mississippi, and I'll help your transcribers spell that later on, Mr. Chairman. I now make my home in my wife's native town of Tupelo, and we've lived there for some decades. Tupelo is proudly known as the first TVA city. It was the first to purchase electric power from the Tennessee Valley Authority, and the TVA lights came on in Tupelo in 1934. Today, TVA utilities are located in 36 of our 82 counties and serve more than 359,000 households. TVA has made significant contributions to our economic development. Between 2017 and 2021, TVA created or retained over 26,000 jobs in Mississippi and invested $3.6 billion in our economy. So they are far, far more than a provider of electric power. They are a job creator for places like Cooper Tire and Steel Dynamics and Milwaukee Tools in North Mississippi, which leads me to my enthusiastic endorsement of Bill Renick to serve on the TVA board. I served with Bill Renick in the state Senate back in '88 and forward. He's a great job creator. He has worked for Three Rivers Planning and Development District, from which he is now retired, and we have a wonderful group of planning and development districts, but I can tell you none finer than Three Rivers Planning and Development District. He was Workforce Division Director there, Mr. Chairman. He currently chairs the Commission on the Future of North Mississippi. And let me say a word about bipartisanship. And I think the ranking member, Mr. Inhofe, will agree with this. Senator Markey is a dear personal friend of mine. Our wives are cordial. We try to agree on things when we can. Let me tell you about bipartisanship. Bill Renick was elected as alderman, mayor, county supervisor, and state senator as a North Mississippi Democrat back in the day. He went right straight from that, Mr. Chairman, to being the campaign manager for a statewide candidate for governor on the Republican ticket. He went right from there to being the chief staff person in the Mississippi State Senate for a Republican lieutenant governor of the state of Mississippi. And it wasn't very many years after that, that a certain Democratic governor of Mississippi was looking around for talent and a new chief of staff for his Democratic administration, and he chose Bill Renick. So having managed the campaign statewide as a Republican, having been a chief of staff as a Republican and a chief of staff as a Democrat, we need more bipartisanship like Bill Renick can deliver, and also we need the job creation and work training expertise that Bill Renick will bring to this office. Mr. Chairman, have I made it clear the enthusiasm I have and the great fortune we have in this nation and in the TVA region for the fact that the president has nominated Mr. Bill Renick? And I yield.
That is about as a ringing endorsement of any candidate which I have ever had the privilege of listening to. And I thank you for that.
And you've been in office these 3 years, right?
For a long time. Actually, when I think about bipartisanship, just the senator sitting next to you with the preceding introduction. Back in 1985 and 86, when I was the chair over the Energy Subcommittee on the Energy and Power Committee, Congressman Shelby, then a Democrat from Alabama, wanted me to reauthorize the Tuscaloosa Dam for an additional 20 years
That's
for its
remarkable.
operation, to help him in his campaign to win a Senate seat as a Democrat from Alabama. And of course, I willingly worked with him, you know, and notwithstanding his change over to becoming a Republican after he was elected, I still stand in admiration for Senator Shelby, you know, showing kind of the bipartisan mood that we are creating in this committee today. Yeah, and that's when Senator Inhofe and I began our conversation about climate change in that very same era over on the House side. And many of those animated conversations I wish had been captured on video for today, so that they could, you know, be preserved for posterity. But the goal here, of course, is to be bipartisan today and to find a way of being able to make sure that the TVA gets a full complement. So while we wait for Senator McConnell to arrive to give his, I'm sure, fulsome introduction of Mr. White, why don't we begin with the first two nominees who have already been introduced. So if Mr. Ritch and Mr. Renick could move up to the podium, we could have each of you begin with your opening statements, and then after Senator McConnell arrives, why don't you leave the middle one open for Senator McConnell? So when he arrives, he could sit there, and you can leave Mr. McConnell's name there in the middle. And when he arrives, he could then, yes, sir. Sir, if you could just leave Mr. McConnell's name in the middle. So when he comes, he can just sit right there and then introduce Mr. White. So let's begin then by welcoming you, Mr. Ritch. And whenever you feel comfortable, please begin.
Thank you, sir. Senator Shelby, I know you've left the room, but thank you very much for that kind introduction. We are going to miss you. Chairman Carper, Ranking Member Capito, Subcommittee Chairman Markey, Ranking Member Inhofe, and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. My name is Joe Ritch, and I am honored to have been nominated by President Biden to the Tennessee Valley Authority Board of Directors. The Tennessee Valley has been my home for almost 70 years. Since 1976, I have practiced law in Huntsville, Alabama, concentrating on law and tax and corporate law and private equity transactions. I've also served on the boards of companies and organizations engaged in research and development for hybrid electric engines, power management, and cybersecurity. My father, as a young engineer, moved our family to Huntsville in 1954 to join the budding missile and space programs located at Redstone Arsenal near Huntsville. While TVA was taming the Tennessee River, it created a robust power grid and a diverse generation fleet that set the stage for our nation to address some of its greatest challenges. Overcoming those challenges created opportunities for many other Americans, including, as I mentioned earlier, my own family. The same reason that our nation, The same reasons that our nation chose to locate the missile and space programs on Redstone Arsenal are the same reasons so many other companies continue to locate in the Tennessee Valley. 1, reliable and affordable electricity. 2, TVA's river management operations that enable transportation of goods and an abundant water supply, and plenty of open and beautiful scenery. I was privileged to previously serve on the board of directors of TVA from 2013 until 2017, and as chair of the board from May of 2014 until my term ended in 2017. I also served as chair of the TVA's Board of Nuclear Oversight Committee during the course of my tenure. During my term on the TVA board, in support of the established missions of TVA, some specific priorities were addressed. Those priorities included reducing the carbon footprint of TVA, right-sizing the workforce and generation assets, addressing the challenges related to the nuclear fleet, significant debt reduction, and resolving some long-term issues related to the pension plan. Much has changed since my time on the board, but I believe the prior experience will be of value if I am confirmed. In 1994, I was asked to chair the Redstone Regional Alliance. The Alliance is a coalition of 13 communities in North Alabama and South Central Tennessee that promote the growth of defense and aerospace industry in our area. TVA's active involvement has been critical to our success. In recent years, I've seen firsthand how the area's military and federal organizations partner with TVA to address energy resiliency and reliability, smart city concepts, utility energy service contracts, and implementation of innovative solutions to energy challenges on these facilities. The TVA Act directs TVA to provide low-cost, sustainable, and reliable energy, protect and promote environmental stewardship, and facilitate economic development. TVA's continued commitments to facilitate broadband infrastructure, advanced nuclear projects, solar and energy efficiency will play a key role in the continued success, and if I'm confirmed, I will fully support these efforts. Clean and renewable energy in the Tennessee Valley is not only good for the environment, but it's also the role it plays in economic development. Many companies looking for economic development sites demand that an increasing portion of their energy usage be from renewable and clean energy sources. Time and time again, companies select the Valley knowing that TVA will honor its commitments to potential industrial development projects. If confirmed, I look forward to working with my fellow board members, management, and employees to achieve these vital objectives of TVA. Thank you for allowing me to come before this committee. I look forward to addressing any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ritch, so much. We're now joined by the Minority Leader, the Senator from Kentucky, Senator McConnell. We welcome you and your comments for your introductory remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Inhofe. Appreciate the opportunity to interject here for a moment and talk about a good friend of mine that I've known and worked with for many years, and that is Judge Wade White. In Kentucky, we have a funny title for the CEOs of counties. They're called county judges. They're not judges, really. They're like county executives, run county government. Wade has been the county executive in one of our important Western Kentucky counties for many years and has done an incredible job. Looking at TVA today, increasing energy prices, rising inflation, stagnant economic growth are all putting pressure on American families. We need leaders who understand that our electric system's primary purpose is to provide affordable, reliable power to consumers, especially true of the 10 million people, many of them Kentuckians, who rely on the Tennessee Valley Authority for their electricity needs. TVA is the largest public utility in our country, and in my home state of Kentucky is uniquely impacted by decisions made by its leaders. So we're home to the longest hydroelectric dam in its grid and to more than 215,000 households that rely on TVA for their everyday power. At the moment, Kentucky does not have a representative, so that's why I'm doubly proud to be here with my friend, Lyon County Judge Executive Wayne White. I know that if confirmed, he'll bring both common sense and a unique bluegrass perspective to his role. As I indicated earlier, we've worked together on a number of issues. We've had unusual issues. For example, the species Asian carp invading our lakes and making them inhospitable for tourism. Wade was the leader in getting focus on trying to do something about this species that was literally ruining our major lakes produced by TVA. So as TVA continues to expand and modernize its power generating capabilities, Wade is uniquely situated to make an important contribution to the board. And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity to come by and offer my thoughts.
We thank the minority leader for his important comments, and it's quite an honor to be introduced by the minority leader for such an important post. So we thank you, sir. And we then welcome the nominee, Mr. White, up to the table, if he would join with his other nominees. And then we'll just continue with the testimony and move to you, Mr. Renick.
Chairman Carper, Ranking Member Capito, Chairman Markey, Ranking Member Inhofe, and members of the committee. Thank you all for the opportunity to appear before this committee. I am truly honored and humbled to be nominated by President Biden to serve on the Tennessee Valley Board of Directors. And I'm so appreciative to my two senators and friends, Roger Wicker and Cindy Hyde-Smith, for their support throughout the process of my nomination and for their support of TVA. My name is Bill Renick, and I'm from Ashland, Mississippi, a beautiful little town about 45 minutes east of Memphis and about 45 minutes west of Tupelo, which just happens to be the first TVA city, the very first city to receive electricity from TVA. Both my parents were lifelong public school teachers. My wife Debbie and I have been married for 48 years and have two children, Will and Susie, and two grandchildren. I'm a longtime member of Ashland Baptist Church, where I teach a Sunday school class. My faith and my family are very important to me. The public service bug bit me at an early age. The first time that I could vote, I voted for myself. At the ripe old age of 18, I was elected to the Board of Aldermen in Ashland. After serving 2 terms, I was elected mayor. I then was elected to the Benton County Board of Supervisors, where I served as vice chairman, and subsequently to the Mississippi State Senate. Following my time in the state legislature, I served as the chief of staff to both Republican Lieutenant Governor Eddie Briggs and Democratic Governor Ronnie Musgrove. In between those 2 terms, I was president of the Mississippi Retail Association and later administrator of Holly Springs Memorial Hospital. I've also spent a great deal of my career in economic and workforce development. After Governor Musgrove's term ended, I was named executive director of the Marshall County Industrial Development Authority and helped develop very successful sites that are now home to companies such as Amazon, Volvo, ASICS, McCormick Spices, Corral, Cooper Tire, and Kellogg's. All are powered by TVA-generated electricity, which was a key component to their locating in Mississippi. I spent the last 13 years of my full-time working career as the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, WIOA, Division Director at Three Rivers Planning and Development District in Pontotoc, Mississippi, retiring in June of 2021. There, we administered the federal workforce training funds for 27 counties in North Mississippi. As exemplified by my background, I have lived and served my entire life in the TVA service area. I was proud to be part of helping with the development and location of those major companies that I previously named, but would also like to share an early experience from when I was a young alderman in Ashland, and a small locally owned company, TCI, Torque Converters Incorporated, was working to build their first facility in Ashland. We had one small area of need to close the deal. We had to pave the parking lot so the employees could have a place out of the mud to park and the trucks could get the finished product in and out of the building. That need was filled by TVA, and 50 years later, that company, TCI, is still building torque converters in Ashland. The 3 E's of TVA, energy, environment, and economic development, are all extremely important to the citizens of the Valley, just as they have been since 1933. The TVA mission of providing safe, clean, reliable, and affordable power is a mission that must continue to be achieved to ensure the economic growth of the Tennessee Valley region. Also important to the livelihoods of the 10 million citizens that depend on TVA is their responsibility to manage and maintain the beautiful natural environment and recreational opportunities with which the region is blessed. It is a tremendous responsibility. I will commit to listen, to learn, to evaluate, and to execute using the same common sense that has served me well in over 50 years of public service. My dedication to the mission of TVA and its millions of citizens, users, will be supported by my ultimate commitment to treat and serve my fellow man as I would want to be treated and served. I learned that golden rule way of life a long time ago at Ashland Baptist Church. Thank you again for this opportunity. If confirmed, I'm excited and anxious to go to work.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Renick, so much. And now, Mr. White, looking forward to your testimony.
Thank you, Subcommittee Chairman Markey, Ranking Member Inhofe, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be before you today. I am honored to have been nominated by President Biden to serve on the Tennessee Valley Authority Board of Directors. Thank you to the committee for considering my nomination, and I know Senator McConnell has left the room, but he's a good friend. I appreciate him suggesting me to the president. I appreciate every time I've knocked on his door for problems we're experiencing in my county, he's always opened it. So he's been a good friend, and I appreciate him for that. By way of introduction, I have been a lifelong resident of Western Kentucky within the footprint of the Tennessee Valley. I grew up in Lyon County, Kentucky, enjoying the benefits of fishing on Lake Barkley and Kentucky Lake, where I fished below Kentucky Dam, a TVA hydroelectric dam. I graduated with a bachelor's degree from the University of Kentucky in 1995, and my wife Dee Dee and I are the proud parents of Brandon and Jenna White. In 2010, I won my first term as Lyon County Judge Executive, and am currently finishing my third term. Serving as Judge Executive has prepared me well for this position. Lyon County is a small county nestled between Lake Barkley and Kentucky Lake. Lake Barkley is controlled by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and Kentucky is controlled by the TVA. 60% of Lyon County is controlled by a state or federal agency. This is significant and has given me a great understanding of how large agencies can have both a positive and a negative impact on local communities, and how important it is to always work to serve the people first. TVA provides a number of benefits to my county. Aside from hydroelectricity, it affords the natural resources of the lake to locals and tourists from all over the country. During my service as Judge Executive, we have benefited from a strong tourism and fishing industry that has ripple effects all across Western Kentucky. And my heart is in protecting, promoting, and conserving these natural resources, our fisheries, and wildlife. Another impact TVA is having in my county is with economic development. My county is a recipient of approximately $150,000 per year for use in economic development via TVA's payment in lieu of taxes. A small county like ours could never generate the tax base for such an endeavor. TVA is also having an impact on my county's ability to receive fast, reliable internet. Fortunately, the southern section of Lyon County is serviced by Pennyrile Rural Electric, a TVA customer or local power company. With the leadership of Pennyrile President Alan Gates, my county signed a contract with Pennyrile Rural Electric to service customers within their footprint with fiber internet. Within a year, Pennyrile Rural has matched dollar for dollar a large portion of the American Rescue Plan Act money in a recent grant, altogether totaling $2.8 million for our Phase 1 build-out, which is going on as I speak. This was all made possible because TVA made a way for their LPCs to invest in internet. and I plan to support the further development of internet within the TVA footprint. Lyon County is also the planned home to one of the largest solar farms in Kentucky. The planned solar farm will cover 800 acres and is planned to start next year. In 2021, I was appointed by Governor Andy Beshear to serve as a member of the Kentucky State Electric Generation and Transmission Siting Board. During my service, we were able to work out the permitting for the RWE group to build this solar farm. I look forward to bringing this experience to the TVA Board of Directors and assist with similar future projects. It is an honor to be appointed by the President for this position, and I am thankful to be here today in this confirmation process. I will work hard to educate myself on the issues we face and always use a common sense approach in making decisions that affect the more than 10 million customers across the Tennessee Valley. Thank you all for considering my nomination, and I would appreciate the opportunity to serve as a board director for the Tennessee Valley Authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. I'm going to ask you a couple of housekeeping questions and then yield to Senator Inhofe for his questions. Then I'm going to run over to make the roll call on the Senate floor right now and then return to continue the questions by myself and other members. So we're now ready to begin questions for the witnesses. Before we start with individual questions, this committee has 3 standing yes or no questions that it asks of all nominees that appear before it. So I will ask the questions and work my way across all of our nominees here today. 1, do you agree, if confirmed, to appear before this committee or designated members of this committee and other appropriate committees of the Congress and provide information with respect to your responsibilities subject to appropriate and necessary security protections? Do you, Mr. Renick?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Do you, Mr. White?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Do you, Mr. Ritch?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Do you agree to ensure that testimony, briefings, documents, and electronic and other forms of communication of information are provided to this committee and its staff and other appropriate committees in a timely manner? Do you, Mr. Renick?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Do you, Mr. White?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Do you, Mr. Rich?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
And do you know of any matters which you may or may not have disclosed that might place you in a conflict of interest if you are confirmed? Do you, Mr. Renick?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Do you, Mr. White?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Do you, Mr. Rich?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, so we thank each of you for that, and now I turn to Senator Inhofe for his first round of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that people know what's going on here, this happens every once in a while when they start, and we will keep the meeting going, and so we'll kind of go back and forth in that manner. It's worked now for 200 years, so it'll work today. First of all, I'd say to all nominees, as you know, one of the Tennessee Valley Authority's main responsibilities is to ensure energy security to the federal facilities that provide power to over 10 million people living in the southeast region of the United States. In 2019, the Tennessee Valley Authority became the first utility in the nation to receive an early site permit from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to license small modular reactors at the Clinch River nuclear site in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Energy security leads to electric grid reliability, and Americans must continue to have grid reliability in the future. So I'd just say to all 3 of you, do you believe that the nuclear should continue to be part of the power mix at the Tennessee Valley Authority? And would you agree that nuclear is vital to keeping the lights on and ensuring grid resilience? Starting with you, Mr. Renick.
Thank you, Senator. I do believe that there must be a mix of fuel. to energize our grid. Nuclear needs to be a part of that. I do also believe that that America has the ability and the technology to produce safe, clean nuclear along with other fuels.
Very good, very good. Thank you. Mr. White?
Thank you, Senator. I've read about the SMRs that you're talking about in Klitsch River. Fascinated by it. The thought of the new technologies that are coming our way are something that I think TVA has a chance to be at the forefront of leading that and learning new ways and seeing how we can become more efficient. I know they have done some updates recently at some of the nuclear sites now, which has dramatically increased the ability to produce electricity. So yes, I see nuclear as a strong part of what we do in the future.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ritch?
Yes, sir, thank you for the question. Advanced nuclear projects, I think, are critical to the future of TVA and the security necessary for our grid, so yes, I do agree.
All right, thank you very much. And I'd say to the three of you, as you know, the Tennessee Valley Authority has announced plans to close both units of the Cumberland, Tennessee coal power plant, which generates enough electricity each year to power 1.1 million homes. Considering the coal plant's significant power output, in April of 2022, the TVA announced its preferred replacement for the first unit to be a natural gas-powered plant. Despite the economical and timely environmental benefits that natural gas provides, this decision upset many climate alarmists who opposed any fossil fuel generation. So I would say to all nominees, do you agree that the Tennessee Valley Authority's leading priority when deciding to replace any existing power plant should be ensuring that customers continue to receive reliable and low-cost electricity? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Senator. I do believe strongly in the Tennessee Valley mission of providing low-cost, safe, reliable energy. You know, I think back to those small companies like TCI in my hometown. They must have reliable energy in order to produce for the livelihoods for the people that work there. I'm a big believer in the mix. I can only commit to you that I will study this as much as I possibly can, try to make decisions based on facts, but also using that common sense that has served me well.
Yeah, there's no rule that you can't use common sense, in spite of some people who have tried. And I appreciate your comments very much on that. You know, you're dealing with something here that is, it's life-threatening. This is not a little deal. This is important. This is our ability to compete in the real world. And you folks are in a very good position, and you have excellent backgrounds, all three of you, in pursuing this effort here. I'd say, ask the same question, Mr. White.
Thank you, Senator. I'm looking at it from the outside. I'm not privy to all the information that has been provided to previous boards, but I can tell you this, when I go to looking at how is our mix going to be, one thing I've noticed is they plan out 10, 20 years in advance. So we have to take into consideration everything, things from your staff, hopefully, that you'll provide us, TVA, all the different things that we've got to look at. So I don't come into this with an agenda, but I want to make sure that we are providing the lowest cost possible, and it's clean, and it's reliable, and it's resilient, and it's sustainable. And when I match those things up, we can use our common sense that we were talking about. So,
well, I think that includes common sense, so that's a good statement. I appreciate that. You got to keep in mind what this is really for, and you also you touched on something there, I think, Mr. White, that is significant, and that is this is there may be things that are popular today, and maybe those same things won't be quite as popular 6 months from now. But nonetheless, the mission goes on, and you got to keep providing. And while some things will become popular and unpopular to different administrations, your mission's obvious. You got to keep it pumping out there so people know that they are going to be able to live their lives. That's all. Yes, sir, Mr. Ritch.
Thank you, sir, for the question. The closing of the coal plants in the history of my time on the board is because they were obsolete, and so the need for replacement power is obviously there. So, yes, I think we have to look at all types of forms of generation of electricity because of our need to make sure we have that reliable, safe, clean process in place. And so I think for the main thing for TVA is to always evaluate the options and make sure we're making the best case. And as directors, we look at that, as he said, in a practical sense, but also in a way that reflects the mission of TVA.
Well, and I think also that recognition that times change and priorities change, and we have to have that common sense that was referred to by Mr. Renick available to us at all times.
There is a vote going on now, but Senator Whitehouse is on his way to take over the ghetto. Oh, he's not going. Senator Markey is coming back.
Okay. All right, we have a vote that's taking place right now, and if something should happen, that there's a delay in Senator Markey getting back, I'm going to have to go over and cast my vote. It's one of the things that I was elected to do, and I have to keep it up. All right, and I appreciate very much your answers and your. Is he in right here?
Just recess it. So if you wanna
Yeah,
hit the gavel
okay,
for
yeah, I
recess.
can do that. All right, we'll recess the chair. Thank you.
Committee will reconvene, and we thank everyone for their indulgence. We have a little control over when the roll calls on the floor are called. So we thank each of you, and let me just begin my own questioning by first making a statement and then asking some questions. In the United States, the average cost, including building and operation costs for new solar and wind generation in 2021 was $36 and $38 per megawatt hour, respectively. Again, that's for solar, $36, wind, $38 per megawatt hour. In contrast, the comparable cost for some of the most efficient natural gas generation was $60 for a megawatt hour, and the coal generation was $108 for a megawatt hour. So let's go back over those numbers again. $36 for solar, $38 for wind, $60 for natural gas, and $108 for coal. So for coal, it's triple the cost of solar and nearly triple that of wind. Fossil fuel costs have spiked after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and since their price is set on a global market, these hikes and disruptions are likely to continue. On the other hand, renewables have remained reliable and affordable. As highlighted in the TVA's recent financial report, natural gas prices increased 141% in June compared to last year, and coal prices also soared. While the TVA's supply of zero carbon energy helped keep costs down, TVA is falling alarmingly behind the rest of the country in adopting renewable energy into its grid. Mr. Renick, do you believe that investments in low-cost renewable energy can help the TVA bring down consumer costs, all while supporting grid resilience and our climate and environmental goals?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe that Tennessee Valley Authority, being the largest public utility in the company, should be a leader in searching for renewable energy. I do believe that renewable energy can possibly bring down the cost of electricity.
Well, you know, in addition to bringing down energy costs for consumers, increasing the percentage of renewable energy in the TVA power mix can also attract new businesses to the Tennessee Valley. Mr. Ritch, do you agree that increasing the proportion of renewables in the TVA power mix could help draw more companies to the region?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Companies like Google and other tech companies, they like to have all renewables in terms of their plant's operation. So do you agree that there might be actually additional economic benefits, for example, in drawing these companies to the cleanest and cheapest and most reliable megawatt of energy, but simultaneously reducing dramatically the greenhouse gases?
I do believe that, Mr. Chairman. I believe that that Tennessee Valley Authority should pursue all of those opportunities. As I've stated, economic development is my background and my passion, and meeting the needs and the requirements of companies that could come into the Tennessee Valley region. Renewables will play a major part in that. I do believe that.
Okay, so Mr. Ritch, could you answer those same questions about the role of wind and solar and the jobs it might draw, the reduction in the cost actually per kilowatt hour, per megawatt hour in installing new equipment?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. TVA, as said, is a leader and should be a leader in any kind of technology in improving the cost, the megawatt cost, and I think that is something that's in the plan, the current plans of TVA. But as you asked the question as it relates to the job situation, I definitely think companies respond to that, and they are putting that as a requirement before they will consider locating somewhere that there be a significant amount of renewable power. And we have seen that in the case of several situations in particular.
So, so thank you. The TVA has the worst efficiency record among all utilities in the Southeast, achieving only 1% in efficiency savings per year. It's the worst in entire region. To all the nominees here today, if confirmed, would you support energy efficiency programs that exceed this 1% per year in efficiency savings so that there could be more energy saved? Mr. White?
Absolutely. Always looking for ways to keep things efficient.
Yeah, well, you know, my mother always said she was going to donate my brain to Harvard Medical School. That's a completely unused human organ. And she said that because she said, Eddie, you know, you just have to learn how to work smarter and not harder. And that's energy efficiency in a nutshell, okay? That's just working smarter. You know, of course, a lot of people will want to build more facilities, but if you don't need them, it's not a megawatt, it's a negawatt. Just a negawatt. We never needed it, right? It's just a savings. And so that's pretty much, from my perspective, what we really need to focus upon more. Given the reliability, cost savings, and climate benefits that renewable energy brings to consumers, it is shocking to me that only 3% of TVA's electricity is generated from solar and from wind. As I said earlier in my opening statement, in Massachusetts, which is neither particularly windy nor sunny, 21% of our electricity is generated from wind and solar. It seems astoundingly high, doesn't it? That Massachusetts is 21% wind and solar. We're just getting started, by the way. Our goal is to go to 30, 40, 50, and more percent. And we just shouldn't be that far ahead of all of these states that you represent, which are much more sunny than we are. So if the rainy day Bay State can figure this out, I just would hope that each of you, as you serve on the TVA, are able to get those same benefits, you know, for your consumers. Mr. Ritch, as someone who has experience on the TVA board, do you think that TVA could do more to prioritize renewable and affordable energy resources, including rooftop solar and energy efficiency in its planning? Mr. Ritch.
Yes, sir, I think that the energy efficiency and all those different options you mentioned are extremely important to the future of TVA, and they should be reviewed. And as a board member, I assure you that I will look into that and get back as to whether or not we're taking advantage of all the opportunities that are available.
So, Mr. White, Mr. Renick, same question.
Appreciate the question, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that struck me when you were talking back on solar, the way I understand it, looking in from the outside, I'm not privy to all the information, but they have a planned right now for about 10,000 megawatts of solar. And when I was watching the board meeting the other day, they were talking about how they're moving forward to this, but they can't get the equipment. It can't be installed. I understand that. I'm from Lyon County. We've got an 800-acre one that was supposed to go in this year, and we're way behind on that. So that's going to be something that I'm going to want to learn more about. Why we can't move forward is it simply because of the backup that everybody's experiencing throughout the country. Another thing that you brought up earlier about businesses, I think businesses are pushing for renewables just as much as anyone. And that's one thing that TVA is doing with the Green Invest, where they worked with the city of Knoxville. In Kentucky, they worked with the Corvette. You got Ford. All these are requiring or requesting the ability to have renewables. And with Green Invest, that's what they're doing. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and in Georgia, a Korean company is going to come in. They're already there. And they're going to expand and expand and expand and expand and expand their solar component part capacity to a point where they will be able to produce components that are upwards of 15,000 megawatts equivalent per year. And so they're kind of anticipating it, and Georgia is right down there, you know, similarly situated in terms of then the ability to use this equipment in all the TVA states. And again, ultimately, long run, we just have to break this dependence upon oil and natural gas. We can see how the prices are skyrocketing for families. And some of the poorest, lowest income families in America live in the TVA region. And so they become subject to crazy price hikes that are caused, in this case, in this instance, because of the Ukrainian war. What does that have to do with somebody who's a low-income resident of the TVA region when the sun and the solar is going to be there independent of any, foreign power in the years ahead? So just moving in that direction, I think, makes a lot of sense. The Biden administration has already called for a zero-carbon electricity grid by 2035, and it is deeply discouraging that the TVA, the nation's largest public power provider, does not intend to achieve net zero carbon emissions until 2050. On top of that, TVA has even implemented rate spikes to discourage consumers from using rooftop solar. And instead of replacing its largest coal plant with a low-cost, zero-carbon energy source, TVA has instead proposed building a new natural gas plant that it plans to run for years to come. TVA is putting up blockades for clean, cheap energy while rolling out the red carpet for polluting facilities that are going to blow through our clean electricity targets. Because of all the nuclear that's already in the TVA region, you have a big lead towards meeting President Biden's goals by 2035, and instead, you're moving in a different direction. And again, nuclear gives you a baseload capacity. You don't have the excuse that other regions might have to need some additional natural gas to provide baseload. You already have that with the nuclear. So it just doesn't make any sense. From wildfires to floods, the Tennessee Valley region is deeply affected by the climate crisis. Climate change has already threatened economic development and the environment and reliable energy production in the region. It's real, it's caused by human activity, and it is something that you could really lead on. And I think in the long run, my father always said, Eddie, try to start out where you're going to be forced to wind up anyway because it's prettier that way. So I just say to you, try to start out looking at where you're going to be in 10 years anyway. You'll be surrounded by everyone who has surpassed you when you had a running head start to be the leader. And it just will not be a good legacy to look back upon if you had the technological capacity to move forward. So to all of the nominees here today, do you agree that climate change threatens the Tennessee Valley region? Do you all agree with that? Mr. Ritch?
Yes, I agree.
Senator, since I became judge 12 years ago, 2 years before that, we received a 100-year ice storm. Since then, I've had two 100-year floods in my county. We just had a tornado cut through in December that destroyed a lot of our homes in our county. So I've seen climate change.
Is that a yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. And Mr. Renick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I do believe that climate change is taking place.
Okay. And do you believe that we should be adopting strong renewable energy targets, Mr. Renick?
I think that, Mr. Chairman, that the TVA should be a leader in seeking out solutions to these problems in efficiency, not only at the generation of electric power, but also at the user end efficiency. I think Tennessee Valley Authority should be a leader in supporting weatherization programs for the consumer, along with the renewable support that they should be leading in at the generation of electricity in the front end.
All right, so Mr. White, Mr. Ritch will each allow you to answer, then I can recognize Senator Whitehouse for his questions. Mr. White.
Thank you, sir. Everything's on the table for me. I want to see all the information that TVA has. I want to see all the information that you'd be willing to provide. Anytime there's something before us that you can provide, I'd love to see that, and we'll work with you the best I can.
All right, Mr. Rich.
Yes, sir, I agree. I think that that is one of the issues we need to continue to address, and I think that TVA has an obligation as one of the leaders in innovation. It should be addressing that issue. So yes, sir, I agree.
Okay, great, thank you. Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. Welcome. Good to be in touch with all of you again. You look pretty good in 3D. Last time I saw you, you were like 1 inch by 1 inch square on a Zoom screen. So nice to have you here in person. I guess I'd like to ask each of you the same question, which aligns with the questions that Senator Markey has been asking you. We are seeing really dramatic climate consequences playing out. We've had huge companies like Cargill talk about massive drops in Midwestern grain production as a result of climate change. We've had firefighters fighting wildfires in seasons where it was never a thing before, and it's months outside of traditional fire season. We've seen just astonishing ocean warming and acidification, which isn't a big TVA thing. You guys aren't very near the coast, but for those of us who are coastal, it is a big deal, as particularly folks who are in the aquaculture industry find their entire crop killed off by acidified oceans that degrade and erode the shells of the oyster spat and clams and so forth that they're trying to grow. Over and over again, there's almost no place in America right now that isn't being immediately touched by adverse consequences of climate change, and it's hitting people hard in their pocketbooks. It's about a $5,000 per family cost, and that's a lot. And a lot of it comes from power plants, and TVA runs power plants, and you even have plans to build a new natural gas plant. So what specifically can each of you tell me about your decarbonization goals as a board member of TVA? Let me start with Mr. Renick and go right across to Mr. White and then Mr. Ritch.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. If I'm confirmed to this board, I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to educate myself to the point that I will know how to make sound decisions. I do believe, having seen, and just in this past summer, many days of over 100-degree temperatures in Mississippi, which was it led to a major problem for the consumer. And I believe that the TVA should be a leader in searching out those renewable energy so that we can address those climate changes that we know that are occurring. It is not only a consumer issue, it's a humanitarian issue, and I take it very seriously.
Thank you, Senator. Obviously, renewables are going to be a part of the mix. It is coming. It's being pushed by even the companies that come into the TVA Valley. So it's going to be part of that. The amount the mix is going to be and how much we're going to do over the course of a few years or a lot of years is something that I'm completely open to. I look forward to working not only with TVA, but also with you, with your office, with your staff, to learn the things that you know. I want to know what you know about these things and make sure that we make the right decision, because one thing I've learned watching the TVA board meetings, reading material, is the decisions that we're going to make now are going to impact what they're able to do in 20 years. So I know that that's a serious thing. We've got to consider everything. Everything must be on the table, and I look forward to doing that if confirmed.
Thank you, sir. I think that one of the things is because it's such a complicated issue that we have an obligation to study, reevaluate, and look at the plans of TVA once, if we are confirmed, and be able to get back with you on some of the questions that were raised, because it is critical to us that, and the country, that we do this right.
And right includes decarbonizing the mix as fast as prudently feasible, correct? And doing this right includes decarbonizing your energy mix as rapidly as is prudently feasible, correct?
Yes, sir, as rapidly as feasible. Yes, sir, I agree with that.
Yep. Let me just say one last thing, and I'll let you go. I don't need you to respond because I don't want to, be pulling any surprises. But for many years, particularly from 2001 to 2019, the TVA paid a group called the Utility Air Regulatory Group, which was an anti-climate industry lobbying group that opposed clean air regulations, opposed climate legislation, climate regulations. They were a hostile force in the efforts to solve this problem. They had enough of a credibility crash, I suspect, that they disbanded in 2019, but lawyers who were part of that UARG program continued to be supported and paid by TVA. So I will be continuing to pursue whether the way in which TVA funds its influence operation is aligned with the kind of values that we've been talking about today. Unfortunately, I live in a world in which, forget TVA, big American companies, banks, insurance companies, retail companies, talk with one side of their mouths about climate change to the public, to their shareholders, to consumers, but then they come here to this building and their lobby groups are either AWOL or hostile to the very ideas that those companies are claiming to espouse to those other audiences. And that has to be cleared up. It is really bad for a company to be caught speaking out of both sides of its mouth on an important public issue. And I think TVA needs to have credibility and integrity in the way it deals with its customers and the way it deals with Congress and our support for you. And I think it's really important that you make sure as board members that what you are saying and what your values are actually the ones that are being broadcast through the influence operation that TVA funds. So I just commend that thought to you as you begin service. We are certainly going to continue to look at that. Thank you. Over to you.
I thank the senator from Rhode Island very much. And there are no other members who have joined us today. So we thank all of our witnesses. And I think what you're hearing from Senator Whitehouse and from myself is just kind of a frustration with TVA, real frustration. You guys figure out nuclear power plants, brag about it, but energy efficiency of wind to solar eludes the scientists, eludes the management of the TVA. It's kind of disgusting, actually, at a certain level. And, so when you say you want all of the above, what we want TVA to stand for is total voltage access for every energy source, wind and solar and energy efficiency, okay? And we haven't been seeing it. At 3%, it just hasn't happened. So before we adjourn, some housekeeping. I would like to ask unanimous consent to submit for the record a variety of materials that include letters from stakeholders and other materials that relate to today's nomination hearing. Senators will be allowed to submit written questions for the record through the close of business on Friday, September 9th. We'll compile those questions, send them to our witnesses, and then we'd ask each of you to give us the answers by Wednesday, September 14th, but we'll get you the questions by the end of this week. So we thank each of you for your willingness to serve, and we're looking forward to working with you in the years ahead to make sure that TVA is the cutting edge for the planet in terms of their technological advancement. So we thank you all so much, and with that, this hearing is adjourned.